An ancient method for improving soil is being resurrected in Australia and is showing potential for storing carbon, mitigating greenhouse gas emissions and improving agricultural soils. The ancient soil additive that is attracting a lot of attention is a special type of charcoal known as biochar.
Actually, the history of biochar goes back thousands of years, where it was used by the pre-Columbian inhabitants of the Amazon region, where they applied cooking charcoal and pottery kiln charcoal into their agricultural plots. It wasn't until, I guess, more recently that the science has started to catch up with what they've done, and there was research on the terra preta soils of the Amazon, and from that there was interest in looking at the application of charcoal or biochar into agricultural soils as an amendment.
The Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry provided funding for this biochar research conducted by the CSIRO and the New South Wales Department of Primary Industries and other research partners.
Biochar is a purpose-produced charcoal that can be made from a range of organic materials. We only use waste materials, so materials that don't have any additional use to the soil. Well, our research in biochar is related to agriculture as well as carbon sequestration. And we're looking at the properties of different biochar, how they interact with different soils, and how that affects crop productivity, and if biochars can be used to mitigate climate change and greenhouse gas emissions.
Not all biochars are the same. They each have different properties that will deliver different results to various soil and farm circumstances.
The reason why we're looking at such a large number of biochars and analysing them for the different properties is because different properties of biochar, such as water holding capacity, cation exchange capacity, the inherent nutrient of, for example, nitrogen, phosphorus, as well as pH, can be important when these biochars are applied to agriculture in terms of helping to enhance the productivity of the soil. Other measures, including carbon content and the stability of the biochars, are more relevant to carbon sequestration, particularly the longevity of the biochars, how long they can last in the soil.
Biochar is produced from heating natural organic materials such as wood chips, crop waste or manure in a high temperature, low oxygen process known as pyrolysis.
So in the pyrolysis process, when we're producing the biochar, to convert the biomass to biochar, we get an off gas called syngas. So an important aspect of the technology is to efficiently use that gas as a renewable energy source.
Biochars produced from animal manures, council green waste, rice husk materials, as well as a range of agricultural residues, such as sugarcane residue, are being field tested at a number of locations in New South Wales.
We've got a range of field sites at Wollongbar looking at impacts on productivity in pasture and mixed cropping. And some of the research that we're doing is investigating impacts of the biochar on soil chemistry and soil biology. But more importantly, we're looking at the impacts on nitrous oxide emissions from soil. Nitrous oxide is a significant greenhouse gas which arises following application of nitrogen fertiliser to soil. It's around about 300 times more potent than carbon dioxide as a greenhouse gas. As nitrogen gets lost into the atmosphere as nitrous oxide, it means that there's less nitrogen available for the crops in the soil.
Some of the trial plots are accumulating a significant amount of carbon in the soil. In the best case scenario, about 40 tonnes of carbon dioxide equivalent has been stored in some of these soils after the biochar has been added.
I think we're all looking for a silver bullet to reduce the effects of climate change. Unfortunately, biochar is not a silver bullet. Biochar should be part of a strategy to decrease our greenhouse gas emissions. So it's an important component of that. But unless we reduce our overall emissions, biochar production application itself will do little to mitigate climate change.
New South Wales North Coast coffee grower Joss Wemmer is starting to see some results from biochar research on his plantation. Joss planted his original coffee plantation at Tintinbar 8 years ago and 18 months ago started testing 2 different types of biochar.
Yes, we're standing in a 3-year-old coffee plantation at Kahawe Estate near Tintinbar in northern New South Wales. We've got about 10% of this small plantation under trial biochar with the New South Wales DPI. It's very much an experimental use where they're testing biochar against a number of horticultural products, and this one focuses on coffee. 2 different types of biochar are being trialled here. One is poultry biochar with compost. The second group is rice hull biochar. The poultry biochar is a locally made char. Then the third group has just got compost alone, and the fourth group has no treatment at all. We applied it in a metre band along the rows, about 1 kilogram per square metre, I think is the application rate, and then we covered that with compost to keep it from blowing away. The best time to apply biochar, when you're establishing a coffee plantation, is right at the beginning when you're preparing the soil before you do your planting. We tend to plant our coffee on mounds, so as you're mounding it up and you're ripping the soil, that would be the time to apply the char, incorporate it into the soil. It's a once only application, and it's there, as Lucas tells me, for 1,000 years.
After about a year, Joss began to see quite a difference in each treatment group.
We measured just the height of the trees to see if there was any effect on how well they'd grown. And it appeared that those that had got the poultry biochar were actually doing the best, and not unexpectedly, those that got no treatment at all, not even any compost, were doing the poorest. Our trees are 3 years old, and we won't get a commercial crop until 4 years old. That's when we will really be able to make some definitive measures to see how the various treatments have worked. Well, I think those same principles I was talking about improved soil structure, improved moisture holding capacity, will really apply to any horticultural situation or any pasture situation where the biochar is applied.
So if farmers want to consider applying biochar, they need to make sure that they get a good quality biochar product from a reputable producer. It needs to be targeted to their specific conditions. But they also have to be aware that currently the cost of biochar can be prohibitive, but hopefully this cost will come down with the introduction of a carbon price.
Biochar is also being trialled with other crops including sugarcane, macadamias, rice and avocados. This research has been funded by the Department of Agriculture, Fisheries and Forestry to help prepare Australia's primary industries for climate change and build the resilience of Australia's agricultural sector.